Thank you all for coming to our Let's Talk About It session on campus community practices with Asian Pacific Islander students. I'm Leah Hain-Tapero, and this is my colleague.
I'm Diana Kwa.
We're both really excited to be here with all of you today. We are staff psychologists at UCSD Counseling and Psychological Services, and I actually was a postdoctoral resident there last year, and Diana was a multicultural postdoctoral resident at San Jose State University. And UC and CSU working together. And so we're newly hired. We just started in September. We've been working in our roles for 3 months. And when we heard about the conference, we thought, wow, what a great opportunity to be able to bring all the providers across the 10 UCs to be able to come together and share our ideas, our successes and challenges in working with the API student population. And so we're really excited to be here with all of you today.
So it being a Let's Talk About It session, we're going to talk. So we thought about different ways to help facilitate this conversation, and we decided maybe having those chairs in the back, so if everybody can... You want to move out? Okay. Actually, let's do something else first. We're going to go ahead and kickstart our discussion with a fun little video. As we watch this video, if people can just think about some themes or presenting concerns you might come across when you work with API students.
Dude, yes. Perfect, bro. Absolutely. I'll definitely bring the kettle corn. Yeah, of course, of course. Can't wait to see you. I'll talk to you later. Love you, Pops.
That was your dad?
Yeah, he's just confirming some plans for dinner. My whole family's in town for the holidays, so just kind of making it a big deal.
That's cool. It just sounded like you were talking to a friend.
My dad is my friend. He's my best friend. Isn't your dad your best friend?
Yeah, sure. I mean, we just don't really communicate it that way. I think Asian people, we're not as open and casual when we talk about our emotions like you are.
So your parents don't say what they really feel?
No.
They don't say, I love you?
No.
When you told your dad you were visiting home, what did he say?
Are the tickets cheap? Don't come home unless they are cheap.
But what do you think he really meant?
You're not making enough money at this job right now, so you better save up if you want to have a good future.
See? That's nice.
Yeah, I guess.
What about when you were growing up?
What they said.
Not bad.
What they really meant.
I'm proud, but I cannot brag about you to Mrs. Chen unless you're number 1. So practice harder for first place next time, please.
What they said.
Be home by 10 o'clock.
What they really meant.
I know you are not really going to your friend's house to study, and you are probably meeting up with a girl from the piano recital. So be home before I go out looking for you.
What they said.
You can do better.
What they really meant.
Actually, it's amazing that you even got an A-, considering all the hours you play video games. But I want you to be successful. And education is the only way I know how to achieve that.
What they said.
Did you eat yet?
What they really meant.
I love you, but I don't want to say that, so I'm making sure you're well fed. That's how my parents said I love you to me, and it's less awkward.
That's really interesting. Why do you think they don't say what they feel?
I don't know. Maybe they're just not really used to it. Maybe they didn't hear it much when they were growing up.
They can hear it now, right?
Zhenxiang, come help me with the grocery.
Hey, Ma.
The grocery store is so busy today, but I got everything to make your favorite dishes. Did you eat yet?
I love you too, Ma.
I love you.
Aww. Hi, Mrs. Wang.
Oh, hi, Jackie.
His name's Jake, Ma. The E's silent. I've been telling you this since middle school.
Sorry, Jack.
We're at State College, Pennsylvania, on our way to Heather's place.
That was a fun video, right? So maybe that's something familiar to some of the Asian students that we work with. Based on this video, maybe we can, come and think about some of the presenting concerns and themes that may come up as we work with Asian Pacific Islander students. So any thoughts, anybody?
So maybe some of the themes or presenting problems that you see when you work with API students is that there's high academic expectations from family, and they have a lot of pressure to do well. So if they're on probation or failing a class for the first time, then it really impacts their mental health because there's a lot of expectations from their family. So that's one that comes up. Okay.
Anyone else? Thank you so much.
Yeah, so it's kind of like maybe Asian parents show love. Sorry. So it's kind of like Asian parents show love in a different way, and so maybe they might not openly express or say I love you or give hugs or kisses. It doesn't mean that they don't love or care about their children. It's expressed in a different way. So instead of focusing on what's wrong, focusing on the strengths in the family and the collectivist culture.
So maybe one way of working with the student is kind of balancing that out and pointing out some of the things that they are doing well to kind of help them feel better about themselves, the process. Yeah. So here.
Yes. Maybe criticisms or maybe being compared to siblings or cousins or other family members and how that impacts them, especially if they're being criticized or comments are being made about their body. So that's something that you see when you work with your students. Okay. So this video, so when Dana and I watched the video, these were some of the themes and presenting problems that we came up with. And so we really hope that this video was kind of the kickstart to our discussion. And so what we're going to have you all do now is move to the back of the room, and we really want you to be able to sit in those small groups and hopefully sit with members who are not from your same UC campus, so that way when we move to the discussion piece, we'll be able to have a multi-campus discussion about our work with API students. And so we'll give you a chance to move back there and then get settled into the groups, and then we'll move to the next phase of our Let's Talk About It session. Okay, so what we're going to do is tell you a little bit about the structure of this session. We really want to be able to have all of you engage in small group discussion, and then we all come back together and have a larger group discussion. So you really get to know the people in your group, hear about what they're doing on their campus, to be able to share ideas, successes, and challenges in working with this group. And so we have 3 topics that we're going to go over, which is outreach engagement, clinical practices, and psychoeducational groups and workshop. And so what we're going to do is spend about 10 minutes in your small group discussion talking about what you do in each category, and then the handout has some questions that can help guide your discussion. And then at the sound of the bell, we're going to come back together as a larger group and spend about 10 minutes having a group discussion where you can share comments, ideas, reflections, any questions that you may have in the topic area. And so before we start, what we really like you all to do, maybe you did this already, is to be able to introduce yourselves to each other, share your name, the UC campus that you're from, and then we'll move to the first topic, which is outreach engagement. So we'll give you a few minutes to introduce yourselves if you haven't done that yet. You did that already?
Well, we can reintroduce again.
Okay, everyone. I hope you got a chance to have some introductions. And so now we'll move on to the first topic, which is outreach engagement. And so we really want to learn more about how do you get students into CAPS? How do you get them into the organization that you're a part of to be able to access the services that you're providing? And we would really like you to be able to think about the questions in terms of working with Asian American and Asian international students, because there could be some similarities and differences across these two groups. I mean, the API group itself is really diverse. And so what we will do is give you about 10 minutes to talk within your small group, and then at the sound of the bell, we're going to come back together into the larger group and have a discussion. Okay. Extra? Oh, yeah, we have more, yes. Okay. Okay, everyone, we're going to come back to our larger group discussion. So hopefully you had some time to be able to share ideas with each other. Oh, no, we're actually going to stay here. And so what we're going to do is open the floor up to anyone from each of the group to be able to share ideas that you got from your group, any comments, any questions, any reflections as you talked about outreach engagement and working with API students. And so what we would like to do is, because the session's being videotaped, if you could say your name, your UC campus, so that we all can get to know who's here as well, and then use the microphone when you're speaking so that we all could hear you. And so for the first topic of outreach engagement, any ideas, questions, any comments that came up in your group discussions?
Hi everyone, I'm Sophia Chen from UC Santa Barbara. So I can share a little bit about what kind of outreach we did in this quarter. So at the beginning of this quarter, we reach out, we participate in the 4-day student orientation to welcome the freshman students. So my colleagues Junichi and I, we both were like part of that orientation. So we make sure everybody know about CAPS, and we print out our group flyer to put in every new incoming student's folder. So when they open the folder, they can see what kind of group program, individual therapy program we provide. And we also deliver the presentation in that 4-day orientation for freshman students. And I feel the result is really obvious, because we really attract a lot of API students and international come to utilize our services. And the other big event is in the middle of the quarter, we hold this event called API Community Dinner. It's a collaboration between CAPS and the Student Affairs on our campus. So we basically invited API identified faculty member and student affair professional staffs, and also all the student leader from API student clubs and organization on campus. We try to engage them as much as possible. So that event, we probably include 40, 50 people to get together. And the vice chancellor also come to this event. So we sit together as a group. We talk about, we directly having a conversation with all the API student leader on our campus to talk about what kind of things they need and how can we do better to fulfill API students' needs, because they are the first-hand information provider, and we directly having that dialogue with them. We really learn a lot from our student representative, and we all consider that's a very meaningful activity, and we want to make it periodically, maybe quarterly, to happen in the future. So that's what we do. You want to share something? Well, that's a lot. Really.
I guess some themes that came up in your discussion with the student leaders?
Sorry for putting you on the spot. We didn't discuss this in
You
the
want to
group.
share a
I just
little?
had that question.
Maybe Junichi can say.
Hi everyone, my name is Junichi Shmelka. I'm also from Santa Barbara. So the community dinner was really great, and the students, this actually came from a survey that one of our postdoc did, but really at UC Santa Barbara, students are really involved and they are doing a lot of events on their own, but then there was not an umbrella organization where they were collaborating their efforts. So just like kind of in student affairs, sometimes we feel kind of siloed in all the great work that everyone is doing. So there wasn't this overarching sense of API students group like as a community. It's everyone had their own separate community. So there was that sense, and just general sense of kind of invisibility, that students are there, but the issues never get brought up about challenges that the API communities experience. And then also there's not that representation in the faculty or staff side, that even though the 25+% of the student body's API, there's only very small representation in staff and faculty. So in terms of just visibility, people don't take their issues seriously. And the other big thing was just a unique campus being not really diverse, and then just lack of food options. Food was a big thing for students, so the dining commons, there's not much Asian representation, or even outside of dining commons that there's not great place to eat any sort of food from home. So I think food is a great thing, and people are really jealous of other campuses like UCLA having API dining commons specifically for API food. So things like that. So it was really helpful to get direct feedback from students.
Hi, this is Lillian from UCLA. So I was gonna comment on some of the things I noticed when I was doing outreach to API student, well, specifically to international student actually. So on our campus, actually, most students are aware of the services of CAPS, but what's stopping them from accessing the service was more about there's a sense of I need to be able to fix the problem on my own, and my problem are not that severe, not to the degree where I need to talk to somebody. So a lot of times when API students or international students coming to CAPS, their problems already pretty severe or in the crisis mode, and that's a lot of the patterns that we see at UCLA.
I really totally agree with you, because so far I'm the only Mandarin-speaking psychologist on UCSB. So when the student came in to see me, I really feel like they are using this as their last resort. They really they were not aware how severe their situation is when they came in. I have students who didn't sleep for 6 months. And then, you know, insomnia, really bad insomnia, really bad one for 6 months. And then finally he came in, and that's what I'm dealing with. And I also have students, you know, who put academic concern on the presenting problem, but they want to talk about masturbation, they want to talk about sex, they want to talk about the issue that I feel like deeply ashamed of. So I can relate really a lot to what you just shared. Like when they came in, the symptoms are really, really severe, and they are almost like using this like a last resort.
Anyone else? Any comments, reflections, questions about how other UC campuses do outreach engagement with API students?
So I'm Jasmine Tillman. I'm a psychologist at UCI. And I basically wanted to share the outreach efforts that UCI does. I've only been there since September, so Kanwar can help me. Right now there's an international coffee hour, and it's every Friday. Well, it's over now, but it was held every Friday, and it was an hour and a half long. And it was really just kind of like networking, mixing and mingling, building a sense of community, and it was heavily attended every Friday because it was right across from my office. The person who coordinated it, her name's Catherine Shea, and she always talked about how she would also be meeting new students and new people, and it was held in the counseling center, and so it really helped them familiarize themselves with where the counseling center was. They would see staff walking by and all of that, and so it made them feel like the counseling center was a welcoming place. But I will say that it's primarily like international focused. So it was not just API international students, but a lot of other international students. And then there's Bye Bye Culture Shock, and that's held less frequently, I believe just maybe 3 times a year. And that was primarily to adjust from Eastern culture to Western culture. And that was also facilitated by Catherine Shea. It was more, I believe it was more informal. It wasn't.
I guess one question that came up when you were talking about jazz is, how do you all deal with the challenge of getting the students to come in? Because I wonder if other UC campuses have like international coffee hour or groups like that where they're trying to do outreach to get the students to come in, but students aren't coming in. And so I wonder if how other UC campuses are dealing with that, like being able to get the students to come into these. So I don't know if you know, or if someone else has ideas.
The coffee hour is in collaboration with the International Student Center. So they do a lot of marketing of the event. They also send their interns to help with the coffee hour. So it's a good 2 to 3 hours event, like with all the setup and taking away all the stuff, putting it back and like clean up and everything, and a lot of marketing as well. So the International Center, they have about 4 interns that they have assigned to this particular group. So they do a lot of marketing by sending out emails, by posting it at different places, and we also set out like different flyers and some signs to indicate that there's a coffee hour at this place during these times. And because it's more like a social place for everybody to hang out and not specifically talk about mental health issues or something, they feel more safe to come there and hang out with others. So basically it's more like a networking place where they can make some friends, or like especially for our international students that don't have any anybody to reach out outside. For example, even if they're going to classes but they're shy to talk to anybody, this might be the place for them to come in and see like how everybody else is adjusting, or maybe share some of their common experiences. So I think because we are not targeting mental health with that particular coffee hour, and we are keeping it more as a networking time, that's what allows them to like come in and feel free. We are also planning to introduce a support group for our international students, which will most likely start in the spring of 2017. And our hope is that we will be using our International Coffee Hour as a way of publicizing and marketing and introducing that particular group.
Almost kicked my water over. I'm Christina Lambert. I'm with UC San Diego Counseling and Psychological Services, and I am the program manager for graduate and professional school students. A lot of my colleagues who work with me on that team are here and doing some amazing work that I just wanted to tell you about some of the things they're doing and that I'm doing with them. In terms of one effort that Dr. Funchin Lian here is doing, it's called Let's Talk in our School of Engineering. We've got 2,500 graduate students in engineering, mostly API students, 50% international students, and we looked at our numbers, and statistically they were underserved or underutilizing, however you want to consider that. And we were looking at, okay, what's going on? Why are these students not coming in? And are we not reaching them? Do they not know about us? Are there barriers? And so what Dr. Lian is doing is she's doing 2 hours a week. This is something we're just starting, of drop-in hours. And it's just a one-page form that they sign. They don't do all of our forms, our 10 million forms that they have to do for a regular counseling session. It's consultation. So, there's disclaimers. This is not professional counseling. Of course, it's with a professional psychologist, and it's problem-based, 15 minutes to 30 minutes, and they're being referred by the grad coordinators in the School of Engineering. And so we've been doing a lot of marketing and promoting within the School of Engineering and getting the word out that she's available, and they're utilizing it really effectively. We're still trying to increase participation, and we've got a lot of strategies to do that in the coming quarters. So just a different kind of model we're excited about. Dr. Wimian Wanabuth is one of our postdocs, and he did our orientation for 900 new graduate students. He did the opening presentation, and then Dr. Lian did it for another 700 new graduate students. And afterward, there was this flood of people coming to our table saying that it was so good to see particularly from the new international graduate students, saying it was so good to see that this was a place for them, and seeing other professional psychologists on staff who understood what it was like to be an international student themselves and their own experiences. And Dr. Wenowith did some great storytelling of his own experience, and I think that storytelling really connected for the students about what that would be like. Another thing I was just going to say is that we're also working on a lot of collaborations, again, trying to figure out how to get people in a less scary way. So for a long time, I've been running a career group that's really popular, but this ends up bringing in a lot of our API students in a again, non-threatening, and it's a career questioning group for PhD students. We're opening up now for masters and postdocs. But it's been very popular over the years, but it's something where people can come in and talk about their fears and anxieties, and it's kind of like group therapy, but we don't call it that, right? It's a workshop. It's a five week series, and we're in that course that we weave in talking about perfectionism and imposter syndrome, but then we also talk about that in terms of what are those environmental factors, with a stereotype threat, microaggressions. So they're getting a lot of psychoed, but it's not framed that way in terms of what they're signing up for. They just get it, and they like it when they get it. So, so that's one thing. Another type of collaboration that we're looking at is a collaboration with a dissertation support group. Again, places where they might be more likely to come in and access services, and Dr. Wenowith and Dr. Elise Curry do our mindfulness workshops. And again, this is something that is super popular on our campus, and is not as scary, right, as an entry point. And really beneficial. They love it, they keep coming back. So, you know, we keep trying to think of how to get people in alternative formats. That's what I guess would be the bottom line. So.
I'm curious about the drop-in. You say the engineer department. So do you physically go to where they are, and then you sit there for 2 hours, and people just come to you and? Oh.
Thank you, Christina, for sharing. So, as you guys could tell, this is a really helpful discussion for all of us to learn from each other. Next, we're going to move on to the next question and next discussion. So, after we reach out to the students, the API students, if they come into our services, clinical services, what are some things we need to consider while working with them? And if you can, consider both domestic students that you work with, also international API students that you work with, and then we'll come together in 10 minutes to have a full discussion together. Thank you.
Okay, everyone, we're going to come back to the larger group discussions. And so for this section, we really would like to hear a little bit more from the different UC campuses. What themes, presenting problems do you encounter when you work with API student? Are there any trends that you're noticing right now? Any cultural considerations in your work with students? And then if you have any other comments or questions or reflections as well. If you could say your name and
Amanda Han. And the reason I say current life or past life, I was a counseling psychologist at Pasadena City College. It's a community college, 30,000 students, and the sort of structure system for CAPS is similar but much smaller. Granted that it's not a resident school, so it's a commuter school. So you know the number of hours that actually students spend on campus is much more limited compared to UC's. So I've done a lot of outreach work, and I've certainly done a lot of direct services on campus during that past life. During that time, I was also a private practitioner down in La Jolla, which I collaborate with many of you here from UCSD. It's been really wonderful. So majority of my clients are actually API and also Chinese-speaking international students. I myself came from Taiwan. I speak Mandarin, Taiwanese, and Cantonese. And so I think having, growing up, I didn't realize I would utilize all these languages in my profession. And I just know that I was always listening to any of my family member friends and everything. I said, okay, might as well make a profession out of that, which then I did. So working with our API, both domestic and also international students, certainly what Ron was saying that, it's very complicated but interesting in so many different ways. And one of the key things I learned over the years is I tend to like to involve some of the family members or loved one into the treatment process when I can. All right, so some of the cases, suicidal patient, parent from China, I involved the parent to come out here, and I got the buy-in from the student as well as for the parents to come out here, stay here for a good 3 years. And we got the student to graduate. Whew. That was like the happiest day of my life. Another case, undergrad student on her 7th year here on this campus, and was one time very suicidal, was almost vegetated, stayed home for 6 months, probation 3 times, and kept petition. This is a domestic one, and the parents are in Bay Area. So I got the buy-in for the student to allow me to talk to the parent, talk to the brother, and I did. And I invited them to come down during my winter break. And the parent was surprisingly just really appreciated, that Dr. Han, thank you for reaching out to us. And I had no idea how to help my daughter or my son. And the son had a similar problem. And thank you for taking that time to reach out to us. And they appreciate me so much where, there were times that she was struggling again, and then I reached out to dad again, and the communication is that very indirect, like what we're saying, and I had to translate behind that. It's like, I think this is what you're saying. And then we hung up after a very brief phone call, and then 5 minutes later he called again, and he would just kind of paused and said, Dr. Han, is there anything else I can do? In as minimal words as possible. And then he just paused. And with me, that brief 30-second, I just felt like, wow, this father really, really wanted to reach out, but had no words or no action, doesn't know what to do, but yet he was trying. So I think when I was able to reach that kind of level of family involvement, that was really wonderful. However, it's not always like that. There are times that, we also share some of the family members, they're so busy, so inundated with their own world, and they don't even know where to begin to connect. So that's also a challenge clinically too, to how to help their daughter and son to kind of reconnect. Yeah.
Anyone else?
Hi, my name is John Lindo. I'm actually a child psychiatrist. I don't really work too much with the college campuses, but I do work with the University of Riverside School of Medicine, and that's why I'm here. I guess the trend that I shared with my colleagues here that I've been noticing in my practice is that out of all the groups, like ethnic groups, whites, as far as treatment recommendations and compliance, the Asian population are the ones that are less likely to comply with medications, less likely to follow up with recommendations. They normally come up, like you mentioned, like in crisis situations and overly stressed out and things like that. They need something quick, or and then once they get better, they move on. You don't see them again. They don't follow up again until the next crisis. So even I've been trying things to being myself, being an Asian American, try to get into that level. I guess the connectiveness to have them buy into what needs to be done. As like a mental health professional, like it doesn't work like this. It's not like something short term. This is something kind of long term that you need to kind of buy into if you really want to get well. And that's kind of been the struggle, because I don't know if, we talked about like the shame, guilt piece of it. Could that be a piece of it? Could it be like an inconvenience thing? Like, I need to work on this degree and, I got to kind of move on, and, I'm good now. I don't have to really deal with this. They kind of put the mental health piece like 5th or 6th in the priority level. But then when it gets to 2 and 1, then like, okay, then I'll get something done. And then once things get better, it gets back down at 5 and 6. So I think the hardest part, is the buy-in. I think the one struggle that's why I'm here. That's why I'm kind of getting ideas of like how, connecting is one piece of it, but also like identifying like what are the barriers? How come to get them in to buy in and like into mental health treatment. So that's my take.
Great, thank you. And so within your groups, when you were discussing the clinical practices topic, what were some of the barriers that you talked about within your group? Where I think for me in my work with students, UCSD has, I think, 51% API students, and so we get a lot of students who are coming in, but sometimes after that initial evaluation assessment, that's it. They don't come back. And so sometimes it's really hard, and I wonder how other UC campuses are handling this. How do they get students to stay engaged in treatment? So maybe you can share some ideas on how to get students to have a buy-in. How do we get them to reprioritize mental health so that way it's at the top of the list and they're not coming in when they're only in crisis mode? And so any ideas on that, or what you're doing at your campus?
Hi, this is Kanwar again from UCI. In our group, we were talking about some of the barriers that we noticed with API population. I think many times we see the API population comes in with problems like, okay, I'm on probation, or my grades are falling, or I'm not feeling enough motivation and stuff like that. So there's a lot of focus on academics, whereas we do see there's, depression, or there are other mental health issues that they're struggling with, and they are sometimes not so willing to talk about those, but they are more interested to talk about how can I improve my grades. And we also see like sometimes the causes of their struggles are either rooted into the family dynamics or the expectations, whether from their environment or their own, based on what is their expectation, what do they think is how they should be performing. For example, for some, even if they're making A-, that's a big deal. So for them, it has to be A+ only on the exams. So I think what I have usually found helpful is to roll with what they want to address. If they don't want to address the depression, or they don't want to talk about it, or they don't want to talk about how family is playing a role in this, or if the expectation is from family or is it their own, because a lot of time when they are narrating their life story to me, it's very clear that the expectation was coming from the family, but for them, no, it's me. I want to be a doctor. I want to be something. I'm like, okay, let's roll with that for now. So initially for 1 or 2, or depending on where the client is, I would roll with where they want to go with it. For many of them, they just want some tools for academic improvement, and I'll go with that. And once that fog is clear, then I help them to see like what's beyond that, what's behind that, and then I think then they're more ready, because now they have more trust. They have seen that some things have gotten better, and now they're able to focus on some other things. And there's also another thing with the API population, that if there is a role of family dynamics that's impacting their current situation, they usually don't want to talk much about it. They may hint you towards that, but they don't want to talk much about it because there's so much shame involved in sharing anything that may put the blame on the family. So even if you're not trying to blame the family, you're just exploring, they may feel like if I'm sharing something about the family, I'm sharing this family secrets, and I should not be doing that. So just considering those cultural pieces, it really helps to like go slowly and respecting where the client wants to go and how much they're comfortable to open up. I think that really helps to maintain that rapport that you have built, and that has gotten you to the point where they are at least open to talk about it. So sometimes it's a slow process, but it really helps to at least keep them in therapy rather than them just no showing and thinking that this is not helpful.
Thank you for sharing.
Sure. I'm John Tai from UC San Francisco. I think tied to what you're saying, I don't know if it was the group experience as much as my own, the experience, particularly with API students, of taking it on and not seeing, even if they present a narrative about about family, just, well, but that's just the way it is, and I need to overcome it. And being able to work with that, it just seems to take a lot of, obviously a lot of time, a lot of trust building.
Thank you. In my work with Asian students, I noticed that some of the tools or clinical work that we do with other population, maybe more inside work, doesn't really work as well with my Asian students. I tend to start out with more structure, and then, but eventually over time, I think they're more open to kind of delving deeper into, what their own thoughts are over time. And so again, adding to the slow process in that. Again, thank you everyone for sharing. We're going to move on to our last discussion. So next we're going to talk about non-clinical services. So basically, what are some work that we can do with Asian population students based on psychoeducational workshops, groups, maybe some thoughts around what topic and skills that might be really beneficial for this particular population. So we'll have about maybe 10 minutes to talk about that and come back and reconvene and talk as a big group. So we're coming back as a bigger group to talk about some psychoeducational groups, maybe some skill building groups that might be helpful for our API students. So anybody who could share ideas on how to recruit them and how to come up with these ideas would be really helpful.
And And another thing is it'd be great to hear what all the UCs are doing in terms of workshops or psychoeducational topic-based groups or workshops that you're offering, just to kind of see like what students are getting at the different UC campuses.
I'm Elise Curry, and I'm from UC San Diego, and I lead a group called Mindfulness for Daily Living, and I get a lot of API students, graduate students, and undergrads. And what I do is an 8-week course where we talk about mainly Buddhist kinds of concepts, like attachment causes suffering, and we have one on present moment, we have one on transforming adverse conditions. So we have like a little mini workshop, and then we teach them how to meditate, and we do a body scan for 40 minutes at the beginning, and everyone loves that. And we have really nice cushions, and it's a really nice environment. So they're happy to come, and they don't have to sign up or anything. So I make it really easy on them. And that seems to work. And no notes, yeah. Easy on me, right. So in winter, I'm starting a group called Kind Mind, and it's for graduate students only. So we have some extra money for graduate students, so we're going to target this just at them. And it'll be a 1 hour from 12 to 1 meditation and discussion. So we'll see how that goes. Drop in. Drop in, no frills, easy. You can come late, you can leave early, whatever. Wear whatever you want. It's all good.
Thank you, Elise.
I just want to say we stole the Kind Mind idea from Wimian Wanawith. He had it at his previous pre-doc site. He created it there, and we said, oh, we like that. So in terms of another thing that we did with our graduate coordinators, so we've got 40 different graduate programs and have been doing marketing to them about kind of a menu of workshops that they can have in their grad departments. And so, for example, Fun Chin Lian is doing a workshop on time management, motivation, goal setting, and Wimian Wanawith is doing a couple. He offers one on imposter syndrome and one on his Kind Mind workshop. And then we have Dr. Cook does one on stress management types of things. And so basically, you know, it's something that is really kind of they're getting excited about, but it's also a way for us to go into the grad departments with a captive audience. We're not having to like figure out how to get students, and we're able to introduce our services and introduce, you know, who we are and make ourselves, you know, I think a lot of times it's that personally experiencing somebody and being like, oh, maybe I'd want to go talk to them, right? And it seems more approachable. So that's just something that we've are really kind of trying to work on as well.